but Roland, I think it's important to give a bit of perspective, especially politically for Namibia. So Namibia really has like sort of one political party. I think that don't they win like 80% of the vote, like consistently for the past 25 years?
Yeah, so not quite 80%. So in the last election it was 80, but prior to that it's been less. And the presidential candidate in the last election got 87% of the vote
Right.
in what was a free and fair election. But that was now after 5 years of the strongest growth the economy's ever had. The first time we had unemployment go from above 30% down to below 30%. And you had that sort of classic sort of crisis of rising expectations, and everybody thought that this train was just going to continue forever. Now in this next election, so we've got an election coming up in just under a month, and in the next election, we're sort of torn about what's going to happen. We suspect that that the voter turnout will be substantially lower than was the case previously. But that the ruling party will still get a good chunk of the votes. It tends to be the sort of stalwart voters in the north, in the sort of rural parts of the country that pitch up to vote, irrespective. And we suspect that the voter turnout will be bad, but the party will still get a good chunk of the votes. But our suspicion, and this comes from just looking at the demographics of the country, our suspicion is that this is probably the last time that that's going to happen. So the reason that I say that is, so we've, like many sort of developing countries, many countries on the continent, we've got that sort of large base of the population pyramid. And what's interesting about that is a lot of the younger people in the country have moved out of the rural areas into the urban areas, live in much more dense, often in informal settlements. We've got about a third of the population living in informal settlements. Often in informal settlements, people that are very aspirational, they don't remember apartheid, they don't remember the liberation struggle, they don't have the same loyalty towards the ruling party as many of the older people in the country do. And they sit with 50%, just under 50% youth unemployment rates. And that's, I put this on Twitter earlier today, but the bar that we set for employment is just staggeringly low as well. The question that determines whether you're employed is, have you worked for a cash or in-kind income in the last week for more than an hour? And even with the bar set, that low, we still have 50% of people under the age of 34 that fail to meet it. So yeah, I think that this is probably going to be the last election where you see that kind of landslide, unless there's a really material change in the sort of policy environment in the country.